There's no rules! There's one rule!
Welcome back to the No Mulligans Podcast. See, first time. You didn't believe in me.
I didn't believe you.
You're like, you're gonna say the Champions Playbook.
You go screw it up. 3, 4, 5, or 6.
It's gonna be like one episode where we're just super casual and I'll be like, welcome back to the oh, never mind. No Mulligans Playbook.
Yeah.
I said No Mulligans Playbook there.
Yeah.
But welcome back to the No Mulligans Podcast. This is our second episode with the new brand.
Wow, that feels weird to say.
Technically, it's season 5 of our podcast.
Whoa.
Which is crazy. I know. Mind-blowing. But, we're super excited about the rebrand. If you guys haven't listened to the first episode of this season, we just kind of talk about how far we've come as a podcast and just the things that we've seen change across Franklin Bridge over the last 2.5 years. We're currently sitting in the new studio. If you guys are watching on YouTube, which you guys need to check out if you haven't, go ahead and search No Mulligans Podcast on YouTube. We'll make sure to change everything up on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify to make sure that we reflect the new changes here. But
crazy.
welcome to the new brand. We don't anticipate on changing this anytime soon. I mean, we went over 200 episodes with the Champions Playbook. So
imagine how long we'll go with this one.
Oh my God! I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the be all end all.
How old are you, Jack?
25.
So when Jack's 30, we're still going to be doing the No Mulligans Podcast.
I mean, think about it,
be a big real estate mogul and be going to stay in his,
I'll be retired by
his
30.
rental property that he's got in, Casa de Campo or wherever. So.
No, but this is great. I mean, the Joe Rogan podcast he's done thousands of episodes.
I know. I saw that the other day. It was like 1,100 and something. And went, okay.
You're like, wow.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, but hopefully this is here to stay. I mean, we really appreciate you guys listening, watching, viewing, subscribing, wherever you guys are doing. We really appreciate the support. I will say that if this is your first time listening, first of all, welcome. And if you don't mind, just go ahead and pausing the episode, scrolling all the way down, and leaving us a 5-star review and a comment if you guys are on Apple. Yes. And if you're on Spotify, make sure you go ahead and follow the podcast so that you guys can be up to date on whenever we release new content. So
follow us on YouTube too.
On YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on
please.
YouTube. That's super helpful, but it really helps us for when people go and search golf podcast, our name pops up. So we really appreciate you guys doing that and helping us out. So we've got big things coming down the pipe here for 2023, this swing season. A lot of things that are happening at the bridge here, and just things that we're super excited. If you guys can see, Scott's got new shoes on as well.
Y'all, I got 3 new pairs, bro.
And they're sweet.
Yeah,
they're sweet.
So this is the bridge pair.
Yep.
These are my dailies.
Let's see how flexible you are. You got the dailies.
Close to the camera.
You've got the bridge red, and then the classic white
cream, a little bit of country club feel.
Yeah, then you got the cream sole as well, so that's great. And then
custom My Joys. We don't get anything for this, but custom My Joys are a blast. You want to make your own shoes?
No free shout outs.
No, I know, no free shout outs. Whatever, I love them. They're
FootJoy, sponsor us.
And then my next pair matches the cover of my second book, which is up there behind you. It's kind of got that black and bluish
purple
with a little bit of red with
my
signet with the SH on there.
Yeah.
So I've got my initials on them.
And then you've got the third pair.
Then I can't tell you. We'll have to show them to you.
Yeah.
I'm only wearing them during major championship weeks.
Yep.
That includes the Ryder Cup and the Tour Championship.
So we got like 6 weeks a year.
So I got 6 weeks. Well, and the players. So I'll do it for the players.
7.
So I got 7 weeks that I'll wear them, and I'll wear that pair of shoes the entire week.
Oh, that's sweet.
I won't wear anything else that week. When I go do my speaking engagements for Golf Decoded, I'll wear those other shoes.
I remember you
cool.
you were telling me about them, and I was just like, yeah, that's badass.
It's going to go light colors like this
with
the red all
I dig it. I dig it. So, even Scott's got new shoes. That's what we've got coming down the pipe. But
hey, I am fun. I'm not just serious all the time.
It's true. It's true. But we thought we'd start this podcast, we'd start the season off as a fun one.
Yeah.
We really focus, and our brand is in getting better, the mindset piece, having guests on that really reflect what we're trying to, tell and put out there in the world. And we just thought we'd start this one off. I think we should really do this somewhat regularly, because one thing that I think this podcast is missing is the game, like golf as a sport and as a game that it's being played now, and how we can really relate to that, to what we're trying to really just say here on the podcast. We've seen some brilliant golf happen over the past year, and some brilliant golf over the past, the first couple weeks of the season here with Waste Management, with Genesis, with the Kapalua out in Hawaii.
Goodness.
I mean, we've got some really good tournaments that have happened. So we thought we'd just start out by talking about golf, where it's at right now, and just where we see it going. And I first want to say this too. I finished the docuseries Full Swing on Netflix. And
I haven't yet. Okay, maybe I'm not so fun all the time. I'm super serious right now.
No, you need to watch it. And
I'm going to.
It's a play off of Netflix did this series called Drive to Survive, which is my other favorite sport, Formula One racing. And it just kind of follows the PGA Tour across all of the 2022 season. And just kind of the ups and downs, the behind the scenes, what you don't see, and we'll do a whole podcast episode talking about the whole series. But what really came to mind is the crazy year that we just had on the PGA Tour with LIV and the PGA Tour, the PIP, the Player Incentive Program, everything that's happened.
Tiger's gonna win the PIP again, probably.
But just kind of talking about the changes in golf and what we've seen, and it's really become a mainstream sport and a popular sport. And so I think a lot of that is due to just where the game is headed, and it's in a really good direction.
So you ready for some crazy, fun facts?
Sure.
So for the first time ever, off-course golf rounds, if you will, have exceeded golf course rounds ever. So that's all digital. That's Topgolf. That's simulator leagues. That's,
Say that stat again. It's over the last year?
Just the last year was the first year in history where non-golf course rounds
wow.
have exceeded golf course rounds.
That's awesome.
People are playing buying simulators in their house. They're playing simulators at home.
Yeah.
They're going to driving ranges and that have Top Range and TrackMan Range and things like that. They've got all these simulator places are popping up all over the place.
There's a new one going in over in West Nashville.
Yep.
It's called the Hideout Golf Club, and it's kind of like a Topgolf, but instead of having a bunch of property, it's just simulators.
Yep. And you have the sanctuaries nearby, so it sounds like they're filling up. So it's just a different experience. It's you're seeing short courses pop up all over the place to accommodate the shorter time windows.
We were even talking about
to make the game easier, more fun.
Well, and we had that podcast with Operation 36 too, talking about everything there, and that was an amazing podcast, thinking about how golf should be started when you're talking about starting out as a game. But and we were talking too about the evolution of people considering making all turf courses too.
Yep. We need to do some research on that and kind of look at where that's happening. But you have, it kind of started with places that can't have, they're not growing grass very well, so they give you a piece of artificial turf and you go play off of that. So you don't actually play from the fairways. So, I mean, the whole landscape of golf has changed. You could argue for the worse, for the better. I think your private clubs are still going to be your private clubs by and large.
I don't know how you argue for the worse.
I love going to an elite private club, take your hat off when you go inside. It's a whole different aura of exceptionalism, not in a negative context. Being exceptional and being the very best that you can be.
Just doing the small things right kind of deal. Yeah.
The tiniest things. They have somebody to take your clubs and clean your shoes, and there is that element, and I love that element. But I also love going and hanging out at Topgolf. We had our Middle Tennessee PGA chapter meeting at Topgolf this year. And we hung out afterward and played Angry Birds on the Topgolf simulator.
I think it's fun because, comparing it to kind of a video game analogy, you get to choose how you play the game.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to play it at a private club and you like that experience and you like almost the competitive, pristine course feel, that's available to you. If you just want to play Angry Birds on a top tracer, you can do that too. You get to choose how you play, you get to choose how you interact with the game, and the best part is it's so either one of those options you can go do the other one if you want, right? It doesn't mean you're locked into one style of the game. And I think, put this down right here, for 10 years time, I think this will influence the way that the game is played too.
Absolutely.
And when I'm talking about,
so
I mean, like, you might see a lot more. You might see a style of play that's just like bump and runs with hybrids, or
right.
all low shots,
there's
all
one rule.
super high shots. Like, there's one rule: shoot a lower score, right? And so I don't
have fun doing it.
You said you could argue it's for the worse or for the better. I'm like, I don't know how you could argue it's for the worse.
Yeah, I think what you could have is like a loss of understanding the history of the game and the people that pioneered it and got it to where it is.
But that's where the PGA Tour comes into play, and that's why LIV has been so influential. Is because honestly, like, my views on LIV is, whatever you want to do for the security of your family, like, fine. But if you're talking about legacy, the PGA Tour will always be the crown jewel. It will always be the pedigree that I think golf should be played on. But with that being said, too, I don't know if you'll lose the game or the origins of the game so long as the PGA Tour is still thriving.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that they were saying in the Full Swing docuseries is, like, there's going to be people who want to go and secure lives for their family generations to come, but there's also going to be people who think that the legacy is even more, is even more important than that.
Something that was really interesting.
Stewarding the game.
We went down to the PGA show. Brooks took our whole team. It's just the attitude here, right? Like, an owner not afraid to spend a lot of money, and we were down there, and we had had a couple of us that went to the Golf Course Owners Association part at the start of the week, because we had some different objectives. Each staff member came at different times. So, but we were down there with the whole team. People were like, Brooks, do you know how much it costs? He's like, oh yeah, I know how much it costs. It's not cheap, but he wants to do that. Like, that's the attitude. And Peter Jacobsen spoke. We did this fun, like, golf trivia thing, which was super cool, and he was the MC. And
did you do well?
No, I'm terrible with golf trivia, because I
thought you'd be a great trivia guy.
I'm the most, like, non-golf professional
That's fair,
there
that's
is.
fair.
Like, I don't remember the specific facts. I remember moments and things that stand out, and I don't remember the details of, like, who was in it. I just remember what happened.
Fair.
The broad stroke. But he got asked the question, what are your thoughts on LIV at the end? And
it was asked to him, or he asked it?
No, it was asked to him.
Ooh, okay.
And he said, this isn't going to be verbatim, but pretty close, it's all about money now.
Mm-hmm.
The PGA Tour and LIV. The conversation is all around, how much money is this event bringing in? Look, the Tour Championship, you win $10 million. Look, we raised the purses to this many million.
Yeah.
Look, even if we're raising money for millions. He said what we've lost is the characters. And this is where I think it sounds like the Full Swing documentary has a chance to kind of pull some of that in back. But it's all about, the whole thing's about money. Whether you take and
you talking about golf as a whole or just LIV?
Right. And he's not, like, knocking on either of them. He's just saying, like, there's been this shift.
Yeah.
Where all of golf has become about, from the professional ranks, money. It's harder for guys to get out there now than it's ever been. Like, it used to be you go to Q school and you go straight to the PGA Tour. Now you go to the Korn Ferry. Well, now guys aren't even going to Korn Ferry. They're going to Canadian and Latin America and Asian, and then going to Korn Ferry, and then going, like, it's so hard to get out there. And that's where we had Ryan from Monday Q last year.
That was a great episode, too.
That was great.
Yeah.
But there's just been this big shift towards dollars. And
but do you think
losing some of the characters, the Lee Trevinos, the Seve Ballesteros, like
Payne Stewart's.
Right.
Yeah.
We've demonized Patrick Reed, for better or worse, but, like, in some ways he's kind of the Seve Ballesteros. Is like, there's so much gamesmanship back then that was so visible, and people were so close to it. Now it's all, all politically correct, and you can't say the wrong thing, and it's all about whose dollars win dollars and how much need dollars, and, like, that's where it seems to focus on. Look at the purse this week. I don't care.
But you could argue, too, that because the money has been such a highlight, because of that, you've created these sustainable characters that are going to be on the tour for a very long time. You talk about Morikawa, you talk about Rahm, you talk about Rory, who's already been in the game for a very long time and still has a lot left to play.
Yeah.
And these new guys, you could argue new. They're not new. Spieth, Justin Thomas. Like, I see these guys on the leaderboard week after week. Cam Young, Mito Pereira is another big one that's, like, started to come on tour. Joaquin Niemann. Like, I think I would argue that it's harder to get into the tour these days because the people who are playing the game are playing it at such a high level, and there's not as much turnover.
It's deeper. I mean, certainly the field is deeper, and once that ocean gets so deep, there's really no more room for more water.
That's a good point.
You know, and so it's harder to get in.
Do you think you'll have to open up fields eventually? You'll have to expand fields even more?
Well, so here's the thing. This is something I just thought of. We talk about LIV, if they don't get the world rankings, will die out. There's all this backlog trying to get in the PGA Tour. There's actually an oversaturation of high-level players. I mean, remember Brooks Koepka talking about, like, they asked, how would you do trying to get on the PGA Tour if I was playing on the Korn Ferry? He said, it'd be really hard.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to get out there. Like, I might Monday queue into 2 or 3 events. And so you just kind of wonder, is what LIV is doing, are they pulling some talent? This is an angle I don't think is being talked about. Are they pulling some talent that maybe isn't big name PGA Tour yet, but you might see over there on the LIV guys start shooting 58s and 61s, and because the format's relaxed and they can just blitz for birdies because of the team format as well. I don't know. Maybe there is something there. Maybe there's not. I don't know, but it's definitely a super saturated market. And
which you could argue that I think that the big reason why LIV, and probably the main reason why LIV has been so controversial, is just where the money's coming from, right? Coming from the Saudi Arabians. And so my question to you, Scott, would be, what if LIV, and you could argue ethically or not, what if LIV was a new tour that was same format that it currently is, but it was funded ethically? Do you think that would be better for the game? In some ways, what you're saying is like, that's just an opportunity for talent to go out there and prove that they're better, like and get world ranking points and qualify for majors, and then maybe go on to the PGA Tour after.
I think, I don't know. I mean, ethically is a big fat question mark around it.
Exactly.
We can get in the weeds in that.
Right.
You got pharmaceutical companies pumping. You've got
no. I mean, you're totally right. That's why I was like, it's debatable on whatever you believe.
Is some of the money at the PGA Tour getting actually ethical?
Oh, you're right.
I don't know. And we sit here in our chairs watching on TV, and we read a news story that said it's unethical. I'm not saying that the Saudi stuff is ethical. What I'm saying is we make a lot of assumptions with a very minute amount of information.
That's true.
That, by the way, is meant to be entertaining.
But I guess my question still stands. If both tours were the same level of had the same level of ethics, do you think that is good for golf as a game?
I don't know.
It's hard.
I'm a traditionalist in a lot of ways. I find that if we don't pay attention to history, we're going to repeat it. That's actually the entire human existence. Is all we do is we repeat this same cycle, right? The decline and fall of the Roman Empire. I started getting into history my senior year of college, and just out of college, I didn't like history at all. I didn't like English either. Ironic, I've written a book.
You only liked math, let's be honest.
And so I asked my dad's best friend, who was a massive history buff, I said, I just don't know where to start. Like, school just confused me because I wasn't interested in it. You got world history, you got American history, you got this history. He's like, what time period do I start in? He said, I want you to read a book. It's actually a series of books. It's novels called The Decline and Fall in the Roman Empire. Never finished it. But, like, the Roman Empire is probably the greatest nation that's ever existed in the history of the world, most powerful nation. And they fell. Like, so, like,
right.
And it's not just, I use nations as an example, but companies do the same thing. Like, we think Amazon's going to be around forever. Amazon might not be. We think the PGA Tour is going to be around forever. The PGA Tour has only been around for, 100-something years? Like there's no evidence that supports that these things are going to continue forever.
Yeah.
And there's no evidence to support that LIV's going to continue or that it's going to die, right? It's like, it started out struggling. Well, if we take that same argument with Tesla, we'd be like, Tesla's going to die. Now every single car manufacturer in the world is building electric vehicles, and they're making them really good.
Well,
but they almost went bankrupt. Well, LIV's about to go. So I don't.
But so before we go into kind of how golf has been the last couple of weeks, what would you do? And maybe there's no answer to this right now, but like, what would you do if you said, "Hey, golf's in a spot where We need to improve the game. We need to continue its longevity. What would you do? I think my answer to that would be I would do what we're just currently doing. I think we're making golf fun. I think we're making golf popular. I think we are holding these athletes to a standard in the same way that we hold other athletes to as well. There's a lot of people are like, oh, I mean, like, well, Mike Trout is like one of the greatest athletes alive, and he plays baseball, or Michael Jordan, or LeBron James, or Bo Jackson. I mean, I guess we're holding these athletes now, these golfers, to that kind of standard. So I don't know. I think I would argue that golf is going in a great direction.
I'm not going to disagree with you because I just don't know. You know, I
see. You're giving me the lawyer question, man. I'm trying to pull some content out.
I know.
It depends.
It depends. I mean, but that's kind of the art of, we talked about mastery with Jamie George. Like, part of that is just the continual asking of questions. Like, that's the 5 elements of effective thinking. Like, that's me, right? You're the more entertaining side. I can get into the entertaining side, but I've got to like deal with I can see 7 different questions going in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot more fun. We need to do this. We need to go to the Cradle at Pinehurst. We need to find a time to go. You know what we need to do? So I'm going to go there for an awards banquet again in November. You and I need to make that a priority. You'll come with me. We'll stay for a couple extra days. We'll go play the Cradle, which is this little short course that's just a freaking blast, and we'll kind of look at a different way of making it fun as well. But
we should if we get the opportunity, we should also go to Sweetens again.
I think I think we can make it fun. I would agree. I think we're making it more fun. I think that's good for the game. It's getting more people in the game. I would make it cheaper. Not necessarily from the playing side. I actually would keep the prices where they are. I think that should match. I think the equipment entry is too high, but there are a bunch of companies.
Do you think the margin is there to support that? Like, do you think the manufacturers can support a lower margin?
Not with all the money they're pumping into marketing and branding and R&D and the materials that they're using. I mean, you could argue that that's also making the game better too. Right. And so I think
so many factors.
I think from a private club fitting standpoint, it's a little more challenging to get people fit in the right clubs, which is why I'm not dealing with it anymore, because there's a lot I don't know. The answer to this question, if we had the person we're bringing on for club fitting, they may say, actually, there's plenty of ways to make it cheaper.
Yeah.
You have companies like, is it par 70 or sub 70 or whatever it is? Or
Second Swing?
7 under. They build these like black golf clubs.
Oh, LA Golf?
That you can buy online. No. So you buy them online. You don't get fit for them. And
so, you're talking about something completely different.
Yeah,
Never mind.
No, something completely different. But like their equipment's a lot cheaper. But is it fit correct? I still think your big companies own the market on fitting correctly. And so, I don't know. I would love to see more PGA Tour players coming down and just showing up randomly at a golf course anywhere in the country, and whoever's there play with them. And don't tell anybody you're going to show up. Just show up and let the whole town end up showing up. Let Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, like, let it do its thing. Like, y'all, Tiger Woods is at our golf course. Y'all, Phil Mickelson's here. Like, he just showed up and said he's going to play with a random group. I think there's other ways to make it more fun without it all having to be behind massive marketing dollars. Like, how cool. Like, you would never know when they're going to show up. It's like, hey, we're going to hit all 50 states this year.
So interesting how you think versus how I think. Maybe that's generational. Maybe that's time in the game. Because I also look at the people.
I want to spend time with those people.
Fair.
I don't want to hear about their Snapchat. I don't want to hear about their story. Like, they're just normal people, and they happen to be really good at their job. And so that's one of the things that I'm getting to see from some of my students who've already watched it. They're like, man, it's so nice to see them as normal people. I was like, they've been normal people all along. And y'all keep wearing them out. Like, when you're tired and Ricky's wanting to go home at the final round of the Tour Championship.
That's another reason why this full swing documentary is so good, is because you get to see them behind closed doors. So,
and I think that's just because we engage so much through digital media, which I have a love-hate relationship with.
Well, it's also the only way to really understand who those people are, which, I mean, you can hide behind a facade, sure, but, like, It's the only way for Jordan Spieth to be accessible to millions upon millions of people. Like, he can't just go to, let's say he does a tour across the country. He plays in all 50 states, which would be exhausting for him. Gets to play with just 40, or excuse me, whatever 4 times 50 is, like just that many people. Like, you're dealing with small margins too. So it's like, you've got to film content around it. You've got to, like, I think you might just want them in a raw, unfiltered way in some ways.
And to me, this is one of the reasons why I enjoy the podcast so much, because this is the most unfiltered me that you get.
Fair.
Right? Like, when people
So you just want that with other people. You just want that with the big boys.
Right. It doesn't have to be with all of them.
Well, fair, yeah.
We all sit here and take on Patrick Reed. All we know is the couple of times it looks like he's cheated, or whether he has or he hasn't. Doesn't matter. You can make your own opinion on that.
Yeah.
But, like, we know hardly nothing else about him. So,
well, what about
same thing on the guys we think are just so great and everything's so easy and so perfect. And so I think you're seeing some of that. Obviously, I need to watch the documentary, right?
Well, hold on here too, because I think also you don't watch as much media as I do as well. And so I think one thing that's happened that's really cool is these other big podcasts, like the Foreplay guys from Barstool or the Good guys. Yeah. Like, for example, the Good guys just signed with Callaway. They just signed with Callaway, and because of that,
so weird.
They get access.
That's so crazy.
They get access to all of their pros.
Right.
And so they just did a huge weekend at Callaway's launch of their new equipment. They got to play these challenges with all of the pros, like with Rahm, with Francesco Molinari, and then the Barstool guys. They're signed with TaylorMade, and so they just did a closest to the pen challenge with Tommy Fleetwood, and they've done things with DJ. They've done things with Morikawa. They've had all these guys on their long form podcast too. So it's there is ways where you can have access to these guys in a more raw way.
No, I agree with that. I don't want that to be left to the people that, oh, look, my podcast is great. It's like, oh, all the people with the money are the ones that get to spend time with them.
Gotcha.
That's my piece.
Interesting.
Like, some of my most raw moments was getting to go to something and getting to take. So one of my favorite moments was to take a bunch of kids from Restoration Academy in Birmingham, Alabama, and we took them to the Tour Championship. These kids were never going to see Tiger Woods.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what matters more to them than they see Tiger Woods on TV all the time. It doesn't matter if you do a whole docu-series on him or not, or they listen to him on the podcast. The moment they're going to remember the most is the fact that we live in the poorest part of Alabama. We're the armpit of Alabama. We have no funding. Our roads are terrible. We live in homes that are falling apart. And we got to go to the Tour Championship. We watched Tiger tee off on the 7th hole. We know nothing about golf. We just got introduced to it. But, oh my gosh, we know who Tiger Woods is. Right? And maybe we know one or two other names.
Yeah.
That is one of the reasons why Augusta is the way it is, and why I love so much about Augusta is you can't just get in if you have money. It doesn't matter. You could be the poorest man on the street. You put your name in the hat, and you can win the lottery to get in to go to Augusta. And that's the way Bobby Jones wanted it to be, and that's why the price of the food there is crazy cheap. Now, it's still expensive in the golf shop, but
that's how they make their money.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you want to get a sandwich and just enjoy the game in its rawest, purest form, that professionally, that's what makes Augusta so much Augusta. But I'm not knocking the podcast.
Well, right, and
form,
because
right?
it's great to have multiple ways to engage with the game too. So I mean, all in all, to cap off this kind of discussion, I feel like
didn't plan this to go this way. It's kind of fun.
I did not.
I like when we debate a little bit.
I know, me too.
We both agree and disagree at the same time.
Yeah, it's true, but also I think that both of these.
And they can sit together.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's because, let's say you can't, and there's not a golf tournament every weekend, right? Yeah. And so, you can't, and a lot of the times you might live on the opposite side of the country that the golf tournament's in. So it's you don't have all these opportunities for in-person, and in-person is the only way that you really limit how many people can get to interact and see these people.
Yeah.
And so it's all right, if you really want to do that, you can go see them. But if you just want to lay on your couch and consume some golf content, that's where the content creators come in too. So I think it's more of a symbiotic relationship rather than than.
It's funny that you say that, because when we were at Pinehurst for the award ceremony that I had last year, this whole conversation, a lot of the same stuff we were talking about kind of came up, and these are a bunch of golf professionals that have won awards for various things, and we were in there, and one of the guys chimed in. He said, I asked my son, because he took his son to a LIV golf tournament, and he's been to PGA Tour tournaments. He's like,
Lordy.
He's like, what do you like more? He said, Dad, like, I just love golf. Like, I like LIV is different. Like, it was cool to, like, listen to music and play and do all that, but it's cool to just go to a normal golf tournament and just watch golf that way. And I watch it on my phone, and I watch it on Netflix now, and I play it with my buddies, and I enjoy going to Topgolf just as much as I do the others. I mean, it starts to make sense for me. Topgolf is the easier one for me to relate to, because when I had birthday parties, I either had to choose between the thing I loved the most, which was golf, and the like 2 or 3 friends that were in that, or the other friends that I had that wanted to engage, but I couldn't take them and do golf. So I was in this tension of, what do I do? Well, now Topgolf allows me to bring my friends who suck at golf and don't care, but kind of want to, like, they can brag on me like, dude, you're really good, right? Like, it allows you to blend non-golfers with golfers. And
so we're debating to end up agreeing in the end that like all of it has its place in a way, and you could argue that LIV has its place too.
I would make that case. In fact, guess what? The controversy is part of what's ignited the excitement around the game.
That's what I was going to say.
People are staking their claim, and
you were talking about
PGA Tour, LIV.
You were talking about how you think that LIV and some of these like alternate tours might dilute the legacy of the game and like the traditionalism of the game, but at the same time too, when you bring an enemy to the game of golf, as in LIV, you're only highlighting these two polar opposite ends of the spectrum, which makes people naturally want to pick a side, which naturally brings more attention to the historic side.
Right.
Because I think that's the only way that people can understand where everything came from in the first place, too. So I would argue that LIV has given the PGA Tour way more publicity than it has had in the past 10 years.
I think, to me, the one thing LIV has to do in order to be – I agree with Tiger on this front. Both sides need to drop the lawsuits. Stop it. Both of you agree to drop the lawsuits. Let's stop that right now, because we can't move forward and work together if that doesn't happen. But the other part is, for LIV, they need 72-hole events. Going to the start of this year, we saw Morikawa collapse in Kapalua?
In Hawaii.
Right? We saw Morikawa collapse in the final round, and Jon Rahm came to the rise to win the golf tournament, right?
You could argue the same for the PGA last year with Justin Thomas coming back.
Right. So without the seven, and this is the argument of like, we cannot give you world rankings because it's not the same.
Could argue the same thing with Rory coming back and winning the Tour Championship last year too.
Right.
There's so many reasons why the endurance and the 72 holes is necessary.
And so
now you can go about and do your deal and like have team events on like a Wednesday when normally you'd be doing your practice round or something like that. Everybody still gets to see the course, still gets to do all that, but you got to do something.
At some point, you got to have 72-hole rounds, and you got to drop some of the party atmosphere, because from a mindset standpoint, it's a little bit different beast. It's not just music playing everywhere. And I haven't been to a LIV golf tournament, but I'm just hearing from other people and seeing some video.
There's definitely some adjustment that needs to happen.
But LIV has to give a little they have to give on their design just a little bit in order for them to get some of the world rankings.
Last question I have for you for this podcast.
And really, the world golf rankings really only matter for the invitational tournaments.
For majors, yeah.
That's all that matters.
Right.
Just drop it.
So you ready for my last question here?
Yeah, hit me.
I think this is a really good, and we might debate on this for a little bit, so that's why I think it'll be the last question. Do you think that the best players in the game have stayed on the PGA Tour? Oh. Here's a brain buster. I would argue yes.
That's what I want to say. But I don't have enough support behind it yet.
You bring in, let's just play devil's advocate here. You bring in a Cam Smith. You bring in a Dustin Johnson. Some might argue like a Sergio, although I think he's on the back half of his career, and I think everybody would probably agree. I just think that LIV. Oh, you bring a Brooks Koepka into play as well. I just think you take a lot of these players. Mm-hmm. There's a few really elite players on the LIV Tour, but I think also that LIV has paid a lot of money to a lot of different people just to fill up the field and make it a complete tournament. So I think there's an argument for both sides, but I think that the vast majority of the best players in golf are still on the PGA Tour.
Did you notice? Look at my body language. Like I just closed off. I just noticed this just a few seconds ago. I'm not open and confident in this. You're sitting there open and confident, and I'm going. I just noticed it. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm like, whoa. Massive body. I've been like this most of the podcast, like this, relaxed, and all of a sudden I close off.
Yeah.
So like I don't know what that means, but like a lot of times the body will tell you something that your brain's not. Okay.
Okay. Here we go.
Sorry, if you're listening to this podcast, sorry for sitting in the pause, but. I think currently you cannot answer that question.
Oh, I'd argue that you can.
Here's my reasoning.
All right.
I think over time you will see only the best players on the PGA Tour because the challenge is higher. And the more challenging the task, the more you grow.
I also think that the best players in the world don't care about the money because they will make money if they're on the PGA Tour.
I agree. So in that sense alone, I think those players that have moved over that are still kind of iconic, your Brooks Koepka, your Dustin Johnson, some of those, your Cam Smith, I still think they have enough skill right now to still compete with the best in the world, and we'll get to see that this year in some of the major championships. But you give it a year, 2, 3, 4, somebody can prove me wrong, but when you lower the bar, right, we're down to 54 instead of 72. We're more playful and more fun, less focused. As a general, at the elite level, I'm not talking about getting people into the game and being fun. I'm talking about trying to move your game to the next level. One of the things that has to happen is you have to be willing to take on the hardest things. And so I think as of right now, I can't say for a fact. I think as a group, if you take all of the LIV players and the same number of PGA Tour players from the top, I think it's hands down no problem. If you did those, I don't know how many guys are on LIV. Let's just say it's 50 and 50. Let's say you take the top 50 PGA Tour players, you take the top 50 LIV players, and you play a tournament, you smoke the socks off of them.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Also because, like you said, the LIV players are no longer trying to play golf at the highest level.
No. They've taken the check. And as soon as you get that check, it happens at every level of play. They get in there, they get their first sponsors deal. Right? Rory took the $250 million. Look what happened from Nike. What happened to Rory when he did that?
8-year hiatus. Yeah.
Right? There's no, especially from a men's standpoint, men want to go and drive and kill and grab that thing and rein it in. Right? And when there's nothing to drive for, which is why Tiger was so impressive.
I was literally about to say that. It's why Tiger is because he did not care about the money. He did not care.
I want the next. I want to win the next one. I want to win the next one. And
his metric for success was different.
Right. And even once he got the thing that he wanted, it wasn't the thing because he always had another thing beyond that. I won one. That's just another one on the way to the next one and the next one and the next one. And these guys are taking that relax. As soon as you lower that bar, people come down. I can tell you that for a fact. Like, that is proven time and time again. Now, there is a fun element. Sometimes we forget to have fun with the game, and you can play poorly because you're so focused on trying to be perfect. However, I would take the route of making it harder over the route of making it easier, and I think they've done that. And I think over time we will see. But if you just take, if DJ and Koepka and Cam Smith play in the Masters, they'll make if one of them beats one of the top, Rory, Rahm, Morikawa, Homa, if they beat them, they'll be like, we're better. I was like, you're still the top 3 that shifted over. Give it 2 more years and you won't be.
Yeah. Because
Which is fine.
the
If that's
PGA
what
guys
you
will
wanna do.
continue to push, and the LIV guys might not.
They have to.
We might see a steady, and another argument here is you might see a steady decline of these LIV players. I don't know if you'll see Koepka in his 4 major stretch. I don't know if you'll see Cam Smith win another Open. I don't think you'll see a DJ be a world number 1 again. Like,
they're not hungry anymore.
Exactly.
There's no hunger. They got the check. There's no hunger. And so,
not that they were struggling beforehand, but still, yeah.
Guys that have to fight more, and they tend to be really good. And we just talked about it being saturated, the market being saturated for professional players. Those guys leaving, man, there's a whole crew right behind them ready to fill in those spots. Like, maybe one of those guys is the next Brooks Koepka, the next DJ, the next.
Which is interesting because I think that's why you see like
Nick Taylor,
the Nick Taylor for our guys. You see like the Sahith Tagala. Mm-hmm. You see like the Mito Pereiras. You see like these new Homa like coming up and really becoming a guy. And
Homa's hilarious. I like his he's a different.
Yeah, he's playful.
He's hilarious on Twitter.
Yeah, he's great.
He's very unassuming, but he's starting to come into that limelight a little bit. And as a different personality, it was so cool to see him. Rahm is very much a Raymond Floyd. Like, go read in the World Golf History about Raymond Floyd, and you'd be like, man, that sounds exactly like Rahm. And then you have a Scotty Scheffler who just looks like the happiest person on the planet, regardless of whether he shot 80 or 60. Like, he's very just joyful about the game. Two different personalities. Yeah. Both very successful and very dangerous.
Yeah.
If you're playing against them.
Yeah.
So if they're on your team, I'll take them. But no, I think it's a
good conversation for sure.
Yeah.
And we talked about, we had a LIV podcast when it first started becoming like a big deal. And to be completely honest, I don't know if we had enough information at the time to really have arguments one way or another. And so I think it was a little difficult. And so I think this episode, I know we were going to talk about a bunch of different things, but I think this was a great LIV versus the PGA Tour update, if you will.
Here's my hot take for the year.
We'll revisit this at the end of the season.
Watch out for all these, no names.
Ooh.
This could be the year of the nobodies becoming somebodies because of these opening slots. And these guys just kind of taking off and over, and they see a guy like Nick Taylor. It seems impossible to beat Rahm and Scheffler. It's just like, well, if he can do it, it's like the 4-minute mile. They are beatable. He went toe-to-toe with Scheffler. He didn't beat him because he had a 3-shot lead on him, but, he was toe-to-toe with the best in the world. I don't know. This could be the year of the nobodies becoming somebodies.
There's also, to counter that point, there's also something to be said about how much time you've spent in the limelight, too. You can have all the talent in the world, but you got to have at least some sort of coming-of-age story.
It was Max Homa winning the Genesis 2 years ago.
Right.
You
talk about Scheffler going on that 5 to 8 week burner at the start of last year, right?
But they've all been out there much longer than we think they have.
Totally.
So
Homa's first year on tour, I think he made like $28K or something like that. No, I think it was less than that.
I think you're going to see some nobodies win tournaments or top 5, and there's names that are going to become more iconic.
Yeah.
That you're like, who's that guy?
We might have to give it a couple years' time, but I do agree. I think we will see a new era of golf, and we have started to see that too with a Morikawa, with the Homas, with the Schefflers, right? So it's
and Rory's kind of he's kind of towards the tail end.
I think Rory,
of that bunch.
I mean, not that you can ever compare him to Tiger, but he's kind of inheriting the throne now, and Full Swing kind of alludes to that kind of at the end, how now Rory is kind of the gatekeeper for the PGA Tour for this next generation.
And you have your kind of big three are kind of him, Rahm, and Scheffler. Those are kind of your big three, and you have Palmer and Nick, Jack Nicklaus, and you have these big three, and now
probably
you have
Lee too. He was 6-time major winner.
So who's coming behind them? They're all coming into their
golden years, if you say their prime. Yeah. So all right, ending this one. What is one prediction for this year on the PGA Tour? It can be a person, it can be a tournament, it can be whatever you want. One prediction.
Max Homa wins a major championship and one other event. I want to say 2, but I think that might be too much. You know what? Let's do it. I think he's going to win a major championship, and he's going to win 2 other events. So he'll win 3.
You know what mine is? This could be the worst prediction in the world, or it could be like, damn, you got it. Rory McIlroy wins the Masters.
Ooh. Man, Tiger, if he plays in it, top 25.
Fair.
Rory wins it, Tiger top 25.
Would that be Rory McIlroy Grand Slam too? Would that be a Grand Slam for Rory?
I think that's a career Grand Slam for Rory. It's the only one he hasn't won.
I think he would do it because he's won 3 Tour Championships. He's won how many majors? 3 or 4?
He's won the PGA Championship. He's won the U.S. Open, and he's won a British Open.
He's won British Open. So Masters would be career Grand Slam. I'm excited. A lot to come on this season of the No Mulligans podcast. Super stoked to have you guys with us. This was an absolute heater to get the year started off with.
I'm more open again. I'm good.
Here we go. We're good. We're all good to end the night. I love it. So thanks so much for being here with us on the No Mulligans podcast. Remember to leave a 5-star review and a comment if you're on Apple. Remember to follow the podcast if you're on Spotify. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube, No Mulligans podcast. Make sure to subscribe to that. Leave a comment for what you want to see in this year's content. And, man, from Jack, Scott, and our new guy Tate here behind the boards, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
There's no rules. You lower score. There's one rule.